We're back. And we did a poll on Instagram to find out what your questions are about relationship wellness. So I brought on my husband, thought it would be really fun to talk about these together and kind of hit the main ones. So first of all, we've been married for almost 7 years. We have 2 kids, and we met a long time before we ever got together. We were friends for 5 years before, because we had met in Bible college, and we had the same circle of friends and saw each other through different relationships. And then he moved back to Canada, and I lived in Portland, so we did the long distance thing. And fun fact, the central point between Vancouver, BC, and Portland was Seattle, and now we live in Seattle. So yeah, it's kind of come full circle for us. So yeah, we've been married, we were pastors, and we really try to base our relationship and our marriage on values and principles that we take from Jesus. We're Christians, and so what you're going to hear today will apply to anybody, but there's a bedrock, there's a foundation to it. So, you ready?
Ready.
All right. First question that came in was, what is your advice on balancing life? Personal, family, business, ministry, the big balance question. I think everyone's asking that.
Yeah, so just to make it, really blunt here, balance is kind of a fallacy to go after. It's not balance you're looking for, it's probably routine, that's a better word. But more than that, we just live in a culture and a time where, having that, that ideal of balance just doesn't work. Projects at work get bigger and bigger, you get promoted, or you change careers, or you change your job, or change, what you do. Kids are growing up. There's more and more demands on your time with whether it's school involvement or sports involvement or all the different things associated with raising kids. Maybe you have an idea, hey, I want to start a business. There's always things that come up, and it's not balance that you should go after. It's just a sense of significance, a sense of purpose, knowing why you exist. What are the things that give you true joy, and a sense of, like I can put my head down on my pillow and be thankful for what I did that day. And each of us are wired differently, and we just have to find what that is and go after it, and make sure in relationship that what you're going after in your with your identity is also on the same page as what your spouse is going after, or the person in your relationship with is going after. Any relationship requires work, so it's important to find common ground. And so when it comes to balance, and it comes to a sense of knowing, hey, like I'm spending a lot of time at work, I need to make sure I'm checking in with my wife or checking with my kids. It's just important to be talking, keep communicating, work through what that is. Maybe there's times in your job where you're working long hours because of the season that your work's in, and that's normal. Maybe there's time where you're building your business, just like Kaylee is with Joy Wellness, and she has a lot of time she needs to schedule and really make her time, and so you have to adjust. And all it takes is just 2 people who are willing to talk, willing to reason together and say, hey, this is what I want to work on, this is how I think we should get there. So really, it's 2 people that are willing to do that. And I think if 2 people can do that and honestly communicate through the ups and the downs, it's not balance, but it's just passion and energy and maintaining that and really growing that relationship that you have with the other person.
It's really good. The next question that came in was on communication, which Ashish kind of talked about. What is the key to healthy communication? I would say, put simply, it's mutual understanding and seeking to understand before being understood. A lot of times we think that communication is about being known and understood and having my needs met, and it's really selfish, to be honest. I'm just being straight up. And a lot of times I'll come into a conversation with Ashish and I'll be like, I have these needs and I have this agenda and you're not meeting this, and it's up to you to fulfill this part of my needs. And that is just a recipe for bad communication, because versus when I come into the conversation and I say, okay, something's not working, maybe I need to understand you, or maybe I'm not looking at it from your perspective. Because then when I try to understand him, he's more inclined to understanding me. And so we need to give what we want to receive. And that's not in a manipulative way. It's simply in a mutual understanding of we both have needs. We both need to be understood. We both need to communicate our desires and what we want to see happen. And it's really important that we start from a place of sacrifice, starting from a place of let me understand you first, and let me know how I can help you before I expect you to help me. What would you say? Anything to add to that?
That's great.
Thanks. Okay. Next question. So this question came in, and I kind of paraphrased it, but I'll say it this way. We are two very different people in color, obviously. We try to look similar if you notice our clothes, but we're actually very different. Laugh, it's funny. We're different in color, personality, beliefs, even culture. How do we practice respect and delight in those differences? And do the differences ever cause strain? What brings us together? Is there an everyday practice?
Yeah, so it's easier to see the difference when you have two different people of two different skin colors, but every relationship, it's two people who are very different. And most of the time when relationships have the exact same person, if it's two people who are very, very similar, they often don't, it often doesn't work out because, there's too much similarity. Most oftentimes there's differences that attract us to one another. Mm-hmm. And in our case, it wasn't necessarily culture that was different, between the two of us in our relationship. It was more just embracing how we saw the world differently as individuals, and just in the way we think. I'm a guy, she's a gal. Mm-hmm. I have a certain set of values I came into marriage with. Kaylee had a different set of values at times, and so we had to come together and say, hey, what are the values we want our relationship to be about? How do we want to relate to one another? We saw it done one way with our parents, or mentors, or other friends in our lives. How do we want to do that? So when it came to the differences, it really was us saying, this is who we are. This is what we're deciding our marriage should be. Mm-hmm. And so any relationship, especially, in a marriage relationship or a dating relationship, any kind of committed relationship like that, it requires two people who are ready to compromise on things that are not as important, and to also hear each other out on the things that are really important. There's some things that Kaylee really values that I have to respect, and vice versa, where things I really value that Kaylee has to respect. And it's really important that two people are talking and really processing and embracing that conversation. And those conversations are not easy. They're hard. And it's important to learn that differences are a good thing. They're not a bad thing. They actually, that there's a healthy tension that comes out of difference, and difference helps us move forward together in really creative and imaginative ways. So difference is a positive thing, not a negative thing.
Yeah. I would say, when it comes to daily practice, we check in with each other throughout the day. I text him while he's at work, and because I'm the most important person in his life, he actually responds to my texts. It's pretty great. But if there's something that comes up in the middle of the day or at the end of the day, we make sure to talk about it. We don't run away from conflict. We don't see it as a negative. We don't have an argument and then go to sleep and then never talk about it again. We actually hash it out. And so I would say a daily practice or a weekly practice is to always, even if we decide to disagree at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, we will always be on the same page when it comes to a big issue. And we will wait until the other person is ready to move forward. Would you say? Okay, last question. What would you tell a couple wanting to get married that you wish you would have known? You want to go first?
Sure. Marriage is hard, but it's very rewarding, and it's a great thing for someone who's willing to go through that transformation of saying, hey, we went over time, but let me finish this answer. Marriage is hard. It requires you to work. And I think just at a basic level, if you're not willing to sacrifice, if you're not willing to truly love, like love is not a feeling. It's a choice you make daily. And a lot of people are ready to maybe they idealistically think I'm ready to start a relationship, get married, but they're unwilling to go through the hard work of growing that marriage and staying married and constantly learning about the other person. We laugh about this. It's kind of funny. We think it is, but the fact that we still fight and argue, not like fight, but that we argue and talk through our differences, and the fact that we still do that means that we're in love. If we stopped arguing and we stopped being passionate about the things we care about and confronting the other on it, that would be us giving up on the relationship. So we just create this atmosphere of saying, hey, I'm ready to push through and ready to talk through the things that I think are important. So I think in any relationship, looking back, the amount of love I have for my wife is more than I did when we first got married, because you grow in your love, you grow in your ability to work through issues and work through problems, and seeing the other person, go through the bad things and the good things, watching each other parent and grow our lives in those kinds of ways. There's a lot of different things that marriage is really a commitment to growing with one another and saying we're ready to sacrifice for one another. We're ready to get through whatever life throws our way. Yeah. And looking back, I'm thankful that we took that step, but I'm more thankful that we took the risk to love, and we took the risk to be married. And that's what I would tell any couple that's wanting to get married. Are you ready to take the risk? Are you ready to do the hard part of marriage, which is sacrifice and pain and even a little bit of suffering, and for the benefit of joy and peace and all the good things that are associated with a relationship that's going really well.
Yeah, that's really good. I would also add to that, my advice would be to see the perspective of, I'm going to be better with this person than if I stay single, or ask yourself the question, will I be better with this person than if I had stayed single? And I know for a fact, 20, it's nap time. I would say I have gone so much farther. I have grown so much more by being with someone like Ashish than if I had stayed single, because of the sacrifice, because of what I've learned. A lot of people these days think that, it's too inconvenient to be married, and why would you want to let go of, all the great things you have when you're single? And totally, I miss my single life all the time because I had such freedom. But when I look at the person I've become, I wouldn't trade that for the world, because I've learned and grown so much. One more thing I will add, just a piece of advice, is to have people around you whose marriages you respect, whose relationships you respect, people that you want to be like, because it takes more than just you and your partner figuring it out. You want to know that you're not alone in your struggles. A lot of times we hang out with other couples and we'll start oh yeah, he's like this, oh my gosh, my spouse is the same way. And then it's you have this immediate feeling of, I'm not crazy, I'm not the only one, he's not the only one, he's just a man, and that's how men think, and all that kind of stuff is really, really comforting, and really, you just have more grace for each other, which is really a fun part of the journey too. So we went 4 minutes over time. We wanted to keep this 10 minutes, but hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have more questions, we can totally do a part 2. You can add your comments to the bottom of this or get in touch with us. So, you want to say anything else?
No, this is fun, and we'll do more of these. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, have a great day.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.